You know how you talk to your friends one way, but then when you have to write a formal email, your language completely changes? Or how a politician's speech sounds nothing like a casual chat? Well, it turns out there's a really fascinating linguistic term for this whole phenomenon, and today we're going to break it all down. To really get our heads around this, let's kick things off with a real-world story. So, I want you to meet Sylvia. She's a bank teller in a small town in Switzerland, and honestly, her daily life is the perfect example of what we're talking about today. So, at her job, Sylvia just chats away with her customers in the local Swiss-German dialect. It's the language of her community, it's what she uses for, just normal life. But when she sits down to read a novel or watches the national news or even just thinks back to her school days, boom, she's using standard German. They're related, for sure, but they are very distinct. Okay, so here's the real puzzle, right? Sylvia is totally fluent in both of these, yet she would never use standard German to gossip with a friend, and she'd never use her local Swiss German to write a formal paper. It's like she's following this invisible rulebook. So what on earth is going on? Well, it turns out that linguists actually have a name for this invisible rulebook that Sylvia is following. Let's dig into what's happening in her town. And that term is Diglossia. Basically, it's any situation where a community uses two different varieties of a language right alongside each other, but, and this is the important part, they are not interchangeable. One is what we call the high or H variety. For Sylvia, that's standard German, and the other is the low or L variety, which is her Swiss German. Now, the classic definition of diglossia is really specific. It's got to meet three strict criteria. First, you have those two distinct H and L varieties. Okay. Second, they have completely separate jobs, separate functions. And third, and this one is the real kicker, the high variety is never used for just casual everyday chit-chat. And you can see this separation so clearly in practice. The high variety is saved for all the serious, formal stuff, like a university lecture or the evening news. The low variety, well, that's for everything else. Chatting with your friends, telling some jokes, going shopping. It's a very clear-cut division of labor. But this division isn't just about function. It runs much deeper. It's all about how people feel about these language varieties and the kind of social status they carry. When you put them side by side, a hierarchy just jumps right out at you. The H variety is seen as a prestigious one, the more beautiful one, even more logical. It's the one that gets all the grammar books and dictionaries, and it's what's formally taught in school. The L variety, on the other hand, well, that's the language of the home. You learn it naturally, you just pick it up, and it's often seen, sometimes even by its own speakers, as less important. But that does not mean the low variety is less expressive. In fact, it's often the total opposite. This quote from a traveler in Haiti, way back in the 1850s, just nails it. He saw that Haitian Creole, the low variety, could express things with a grace and a directness that French, the H variety, just couldn't match. And this gets at a really complex attitude. In a diglossic society like Haiti, people will publicly respect the high variety, French, but privately they admire the low variety, Haitian Creole. It's the language of intimacy, of humor, of genuine feeling, even if it doesn't have that same official status. Okay, so far, we've been talking about different varieties of the same language. But what happens when you've got two completely unrelated languages in the mix? Well, the concept of diglossia has actually expanded to cover that too. This brings up such a crucial point. Diglossia is about the whole community, while bilingualism is about the individual. A whole country can be diglossic, with H and L languages doing different jobs, but that does not mean every single person who lives there is bilingual. In Haiti, for example, even with French as the official L language, more than 90% of the population is monolingual. They only speak the L variety, Haitian Creole. This means access to power, to education, to government is often limited to a very small bilingual elite. So because of situations just like that, linguists expanded the definition. Diglossia can also describe a society where two completely separate, unrelated languages have taken on the roles of high and low. Paraguay is a fantastic example of this. You've got Spanish, the colonial language, acting as the H variety, used in government and school. But then you have Guarani, an indigenous language, which is the vibrant L variety, used by almost everybody for everyday life. It's a perfect case of two totally distinct languages in a classic diglossic relationship. So this brings it all back to you. The lines might not be as rigid as they are in Switzerland or Paraguay, but think about it. Do you use one style of speaking for a job interview and a totally different one for texting your friends? That code switching is a reflection of the very same pressures that create diglossia. It's just a universal tale of language having more than one job to do.